welcome back. We are up to chapter 7, right? Well, you're up to chapter 11. I'm up to chapter 7. So this talk will go from chapter 1 to 7 of The Naked Sun, book 2 of the Robot series by Isaac Asimov. You said you might like this more than Caves of Steel, or at least writing and structure-wise. And
I like this book a lot. I feel like the pacing of this book is great, and I feel like it's just constantly feeding you, because whereas Caves of Steel, there's something about it taking place on Earth and it being people not liking robots, and there's something familiar about it. You on this book, you're in a totally different planet, and like everything is being fed to you, and I feel a lot like Bailey. Like basically Bailey ends up in a situation where he's trying to take in as much as possible so that he can just figure out like what is normal and what is out of place, so that I can start to figure out what is out of place and pointing me in the direction I need to go in. Yeah,
I was joking earlier that how easy Asimov has it, since it's all alien worlds. So there's 50 of them, and they all have their own culture, and so it's not like he can do an exposition dump way more naturally than somebody writing in like a medieval thing.
Yeah,
I was like, how do you have your character who grew up in this medieval town start talking about, like, how do you explain it without it sounding, weirdly forced?
I was born here.
Yeah, remember the place where we grew up and we did this?
Let me tell you the story of our lives.
You know the story of the street we grew up on. Let me tell it again. So it's none of that, because like I said, Bailey is a foreigner. He's on an alien world with its own unique culture. But even the way
Asimov's having Bailey figure everything out, it's written really well, where they're explaining things, but like people are acting in reaction to things. Like, it's not like they're just sitting there and like, by the way, Bailey, this is the way.
Yeah, like, it still has to be written right. It still has to be written naturally.
I mean, but there's so much exposition. It's like woven into the conversations these characters are having to move the story along really well.
Yeah,
I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, it could have very easily just been like, I went to see this character and he spelled everything out to me, XYZ.
Yeah.
And kind of like in Foundation 5, where like Trapeze is like, don't you remember Pellerot? Like, A equals B equals C.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder how long we'll be complaining about Foundation 5 for.
Forever.
If you guys heard that talk. And if you guys are new, we will be, of course, spoilers from chapters 1 to 7. And we'll be rambling all throughout, but we do have a whole bunch of quotes highlighted, so we'll be working through that.
Oh, I have so much highlighted. It's not healthy. Yeah. I don't know why. I feel like I start reading and then I highlight something because I'm like, that was funny. Yeah. I would like to remember that. And then I highlight the next thing because I'm like, that's important.
Yeah.
Then I highlight the next thing because I'm like, that was well written.
It's all right. That's how we'll know you're on a book or author that you don't like, because it'll just be blank.
Yeah, there'll be nothing.
So Bailey, it starts off, we get Bailey getting contacted. It was cool going to Washington. I like how he plays and builds off of the previous books.
Yeah, he gets like a notification that's very cryptic. It's like, hey, you are being reassigned. We need you to go from New York to Washington because we're going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, but they mentioned Washington a couple times. There's a minor plot point in the last book.
Well, the roboticist came from Washington.
Yeah.
And you remember he took an...
And there's that whole...
If you listen to the talk, you would remember he took an expressway and he was late to see Bailey because he was like terrified he won't fly.
Yeah. And right away they jump into, now we have Bailey flying to New York, which is nuts, and his wife is all terrified.
Bailey's like, wow.
I know, right? Because, they live in underground caves. How terrifying. There's like 6 people on the plane or something. I don't know if you have...
5.
Five people. Yeah.
It's like 5
that's
other
crazy.
people. I think 6 total with him.
And I love the details on the etiquette that everybody's just supposed to stare forward.
You like sit down on this plane. So the plane has absolutely no windows because at this point people are so used to the domes.
And vomit themselves to death.
They literally are terrified of like seeing the sky.
Yeah.
And so you're in basically, he described it so perfectly, a metal bullet. That's like basically what they're sitting inside of.
Yeah.
And you have your seat, and your seat has like a viewer that I'm assuming it's like right up against your face almost.
Yeah.
And the whole point is like you're not supposed to look at anyone else because everyone's on the brink of a panic attack.
Yeah, don't make it worse. Don't make me socially, worried about what you're thinking about my panic attack.
Yeah,
Stick to your own panic attack over there.
They just have like these little social. I mean, it's like a newspaper reel, or like I picture it almost as like the CNN, like.
Yeah, just like a ticker on the bottom.
Yeah.
Imagine what the flight attendants must be and the pilots. These got to be the bravest people on Earth.
I would.
War veterans.
I mean, yeah,
from the spacer times.
It's Earth. I was about to say, why would it not be flown by a robot? But
yeah, that's true. They heard he took their gerbs. So he's being, and the cryptic that he's being reassigned, away from New York. He's like, where could it be? You know what I mean? I love you got it highlighted here. Quite a distance.
Yeah, as he himself was isolated in the cold and featureless air in a small bullet of metal, moving through. Dang it!
What are you looking for?
It was just I was looking for the way they described the little viewer.
Oh, okay. I love.
Yeah, Bailey kept his eyes on the unreeling strip.
Okay, yeah, the strip of detail. I do love when he's flying over. They had penned in Earth and their Earthman cousins. The Earth cities civilizations completed the task, imprisoning Earthmen within the cities by a wall of fear of open spaces that barred them from the robot-run farming and mining areas of their own planet. From even that. So we see a shift in his mindset that he's not brave and some nature-loving granola guy
He's
yet.
He's really not.
But he does see it gross. He sees the grotesqueness in the human situation. And I'm sure that's going to be made better. I was telling you, there's something that I mentioned in the last book that I know must be from Robots at Dawn, which I think is the third one in the series. I forget. I read these first three a long time ago.
The other one is
Yeah, I think Robots at Dawn.
Yeah.
But I don't remember all the details. We were joking that last time I remembered who the murderer was.
He claims that this time he also remembers.
I remember how it happened, but I remember what happened, but I have no clue how it came about. At least not consciously. This was a long time ago. But anyways, when you get to the Washington, they tell him that he's going to Solaria. The Department of Justice is assigning you temporary duty on Solaria, a spacer world we heard mentioned before.
Well, so if you were here for the Foundation books, that we were actually on Solaria. So,
but I think it's mentioned in Caves of Steel, no?
It is. I think it is mentioned, but just as a.
And Daniil comes from.
He comes from Aurora.
Aurora, which has the best robots.
Aurora is just the best technically out there. It's the strongest, largest outer world. Yeah. But technically, Solaria claims they have the most advanced robots.
Yeah, okay, that's
mind
what I was
you.
Tripped up on.
What trips you up is what Daniil is doing to the Solarians.
Yeah.
Because basically, Bailey gets told he's gonna go to Solaria. He can't say goodbye to his wife, which is extremely disturbing for him. He can't say bye to his kid. He doesn't know how long he's gonna be gone. He's being sent away. It's a reassignment for some unknown mission. The only perk to all of this is that his family gets boosted, which, by the way, I was like, really, bro? Because in the first book, when he took on the murder of the spacer,
Dr. Sarton,
he was promised by Enderby that he was going to be a C6, possibly. Or probably do C7, and I'm like, really? You ended up just a C6?
That was a funny detail. That's a great point.
That's such bull.
Oh, we have to get into.
So this time they're like, if you complete, you'll be C7 temporarily. If you complete this, it might be permanent. Yeah. I'm like, really? So me going and doing a mission off planet,
which
might make it so that I'm permanently a C7.
It's worse than World War III, by the way. Which I
literally wrote a note like, y'all gonna keep your promise this time?
I know, right? That is funny. But it's cool when we're looking at the images from the old book covers and the magazine covers.
They are very cool.
From Caves of Steel. But there's a line there that mentions the destruction of the world hangs in the balance, and I'm like, I feel like that wasn't reminded, it wasn't stressed in Caves of Steel, how important this is. They mentioned it in the beginning, but
I mean, they kept telling us how all these outer but I think it's just not taken very seriously.
I know, I don't think it's kind of true, but they try and play with the idea that the spacers could just destroy all of Earth if they get pissed that one of their own was killed on Earth. But anyways, now, and they do tell him that the whole point is that there was a murder on Solaria, and he goes, there's a whole back and forth, like, why do they need me? I'm just a freaking cop guy from over here. But they like him. For some reason, he's been picked to go, and he's worked with spacers before. And...
Oh, they actually they actually say, we want you.
Yeah, because you solved the murder.
You have experience. Basically, they feel like he can be trusted.
Yeah. Now, if you guys read this, you were confused as to how that makes sense with the whole ending. I was so
confused. So I'm like...
Yeah, the whole
getting the baby to take a nap, reading my Kindle, and they're like, yeah, we're bringing you here because the spacers asked for you after you solved the murder of the spacer. And I'm like, didn't we all agree at that book that we were sweeping it under the rug? Mm-hmm. That nobody was going to be prosecuted.
Yeah, the whole point was to flip him.
We're going to have a double agent that was going to turn everyone. Yeah. Which that was another thing. Asimov kind of threw me off because, like, Bailey's on this plane, side tangent. Bailey's on the plane watching this, like, movie, basically, or reading a book about... like how man can conquer space, and he's like, we can't do that. That's for spacers and, the outer worlds, and man can't do that. But if we don't like how things are here, we should conquer it. And I'm like, I thought we agreed that we were going to do that.
Yeah, he was so converted.
That's the whole point of Caves of Steel. We all agreed that we're going to be having a double agent.
That the only way Earth survives is by spreading out.
The mentality of an entire movement, the medievalist, so that we can colonize the stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
the whole point of the commissioner was to be flipped. Yeah, to your first, to the point that Bailey does seem a little bit not like Bailey. It's a little disjointed. Like, it doesn't feel like we're picking up with the same Bailey.
Right where we left off.
And I hate to say, I think probably the out-of-universe answer is just that Asimov wants to write these as self-contained a little bit.
I get it.
So, I mean, it's kind of sad. You do lose.
But then don't tell me,
I know, there's got to be a better way to do it. And
I get it too. He was just trying to like get the books out because Asimov has such a giant body of work.
Yeah, he's literally the most prolific American author.
And it's more than 400. Get these books out books. It's insane. Like some writers don't get books out like for years, and he's out here pumping. Like if you actually look at the dates when he would publish stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very interesting forward.
I would relate him to like Stephen King. Stephen King makes it cool to get a book out every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. So Asimov is doing more than that.
Yeah.
By a lot somehow. But so I think that is the first point. But to the commissioner being the medievalist, that the whole point was that nobody could know because you can't tell anybody because you don't know who else is in the medievalist organization, which is this huge anti-spacer terrorist organization, anti-robot.
It has millions of people in it.
Yeah, across the globe. So the whole point is that nobody can know. But I was telling you that I think
the spacers are secretly wanting humanity to spread because they're realizing, and it's something that we're going to touch on in this book. Mm-hmm. You're not there yet, but it's the concept of like the more robots that we have, the lower the smaller our urge to reproduce is.
Oh, yeah, which we definitely see.
And, like, the spacers have that problem where they're seeing on their outer worlds, their populations are decreasing. So if they don't figure out how to get man into space, like, basically humanity's just gonna drop off. Yeah,
keep dropping off, which is, of course, what we see in the Foundation series. The world's
gonna be full of robots with nothing to do for anyone. Like, they're just gonna do random
We're made
shit.
To serve people with no people.
Like, the only ones that'll have anything to do are the farmers, and they'll be like... Yeah. Where's the crops going?
But you were worried that that's a huge plot point. I mean, flaw.
So I went back. The flaw I was frustrated at, it was that Bailey basically is getting credit for this murder that we supposedly aren't supposed to have.
Yeah, nobody can know that the commissioner's the murderer.
Yeah.
So how the hell does that work? But I was saying, look, they had to have had some sort of cover story for the public because... his own family knows. I mean, they gotta have friends. The wife knows he's working a murder case. All of Spacers know because every single weapon in Spacetown was
and he did get
examined.
A promotion.
Yeah, and he got a promotion. So all his colleagues, the whole police department
had to make sense.
So I was like, it could just be literally as simple as like just an actor, just, hey, we caught Bob. Bob did it.
Even just, they didn't have to have any, just, the spacers have.
That's true. The spacers caught it. The commissioner and Bailey agree that he's been caught. The spacers want to keep it anonymous.
Yeah.
The spacers are the ones sweeping it under the rug. Could be the public story.
Yeah.
And just everybody moves on. They
Bailey
go, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. The
Bailey
spacers
was instrumental in figuring it out.
Yeah,
blah,
and the
blah.
spacers keep to themselves. That's a super plausible story. But it is weird that Asimov doesn't give us an explanation. That he doesn't anticipate that we would wonder, why did that happen?
So it's funny, I did think it was weird, but now seeing how many things are happening and how quickly you're getting information and having to learn about everything on Solaria, I get why he was like, I really am gonna skip.
We need a counter for how many times we're gonna shit on Foundation and Earth, because I'm like, yeah, that's what I hated about that book, because we were saying that we think that he just made it longer because the publisher wanted it to be super long. But that's what I love about Asimov.
He's like, I need to skip, Earth is, yes, this is all cool or whatever, but it's going to get exponentially cooler once we're off this planet.
Mm-hmm. And that's why these books are so good. There's no wasted time.
I don't know. Here, it's been figured out.
Yeah.
Here's your plane. Your plane, it's going to fly you out to Washington. I'm in Washington. You have 2 days. You're leaving to a different planet. Mm-hmm. Don't know when you'll be back. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
And then, I don't know if you want any preamble to it, but he meets our best friend.
Well, he literally, he goes into space. You get this really cool, I
wanted to see. Go ahead, I'm going to Google something.
Okay. Sorry. You get him feeling the jumps. So that was really cool because I wasn't sure technologically how far we were. Oh, what he's looking up is because Asimov makes a big deal. He's like, in an hour they were outside of the atmosphere and in space.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought it was longer than that. I thought he says way longer. No?
Yeah.
It was just as an hour? Okay.
I thought so. I thought it was an hour and then they're in space and then it takes he's not sure how long they're drifting because it's explained in Foundation, but you have to get a certain distance away from a sun or in order to
before you can go to hyperspace. Jump. Yeah. Which is what Star Wars took with the whole Han Solo calculating.
So he's not sure if it's a second or 2 or 3 days of them drifting in space before he actually feels...
but what I'm Googling is how long it took him to get out of atmosphere, because it's cool. Naked Sun was written in 1957, and the first flight into actual space was... which is funny. So in 57 was when the Soviets launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, into space. But 4 years later, in 61, is when Gagarin becomes the first human to orbit Earth. And that lasted his flight lasted 108 minutes. So, more than almost 2 hours, Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. So, he was pretty close on the mark there. I was like, I wonder when he wrote this. Did he write this? I had a suspicion he wrote this before the first manned flight into space. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Cool detail of Asimov, thinking these things out. But yeah, so then they do the hyperspace.
I do feel there's a lot in this book that's very well thought out, especially for someone at his, in his point in time, writing so far ahead, thinking so far ahead. I think this book's very well, he really does a good job of thinking of even some of the most random things where I'm like, we have...
Everything from it.
Today.
Yeah, from the last book, from Caves of Steel, for sure. That's why I always say it's worldview shifting for me, or at least helps you analyze your own worldview. Because the whole civies thing, that's what people are fighting with now. And then Solaria's they got video calls, which we'll get to in a second, but the whole, not wanting to meet or interact with other people. Even their whole fear of getting sick, not catching the kofifi.
Yeah, I was literally going to be not to trigger everybody, but
yeah, that's
literally from something that happened to
a couple of years ago,
a few years ago.
And we could critique it, but of course we all use it though. We use it too.
We're still recovering from psychologically,
but it's hard not to fall into that. It's just more convenient to just leave it at the door, bro. So I'm not even seeing the.
Just a cool note about him flying. Billy told himself now that he was light years away, tens of light years, hundreds of thousands. He didn't know how many. No one on Earth as much as knew Solaria's location in space. He would bet on that. They were ignorant, every one of them. He felt terribly alone. Yeah. So it was just a cool thought. Or I highlighted that because I thought how weird that to think that almost none of the human species
of Earthlings, I guess.
Like, none of the Earthmen would know where the other planets are located.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, Foundation where Trevize is like, oh, I can look at the map and know da-da-da.
Yeah, that is a cool juxtaposition. And he might be the only Earthling to have ever done this. Because, of course, all the spacers are, species. They're all humans. But
they've stopped allowing hundreds of years ago to go to their planets.
Yeah. So no Earth people know where these planets are and how weird. He has no clue. Like you said, is he 10,000 light years? Like, who knows? He literally has no clue where he is.
He has absolutely. He doesn't even know. He asked the robot, so, like, what time is it gonna be when we land? And the robot starts to give him some crazy ass answer.
It's kind of funny,
Yeah. He's like, I just want to know if it's gonna be daytime out.
Mm-hmm.
And the robot's like, yes. He's like, great.
Yeah.
And, like, Bailey has a panic attack because he's realizing that he's gonna be. So this is chapter 2 at this point, when he realizes he's gonna be landing on a different planet in broad daylight, and this planet is not. So, like, we've been seeing him up until this point in the first chapter having panic attacks on the plane because of the openness outside of the metal plane that has no windows, and on the rocket ship or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the correct term is.
No, it's
what? Nothing.
No.
I can just hear a voice in my head like, she doesn't know what it is.
The internal comment section, yeah.
But so he's having a panic attack going through space because that's even more open than.
Yeah, you're scared of the sky. How terrifying is outer space?
Yeah, but now he's going to a planet where they believe in having open sky.
Yeah, there was a cool scene in the thing in both the rocket ship. Yeah, it's the same rocket ship. So do you want to see it though? How cool! Like, do you want to look out?
I had that highlighted.
Do you want to look out in space? And it's like, are you effing kidding me?
Yeah, he was like, no.
Yeah, I don't know where that highlight would be.
Oh, you will have viewing matter. The ports are controlled from this panel. They are closed now, but if you wish to view space, Bailey said with some agitation, that's all right, boy. Leave the ports closed. So, boy, referencing a robot.
Yeah. A tie back last episode, I was mentioning that he kept doing that to Daniil.
Oh, actually, it says it here. He used the boy address. Why is that? He used the boy address that Earthmen always use for robots, but the robot showed no averse response. It couldn't, of course.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see.
Sadly, is another weird character inconsistency. I was like, he literally preaches the gospel to Daniil, and gets Daniil to quote, Jesus back at him, and he leaves arm in arm. He's literally like bros with him. And now he feels insecure and is talking shit to robots.
I actually don't think that's.
I know these are lower robots, and he's
not
scared.
Not just that. Like, I almost feel like for him, he has bonded with Daniil.
Yeah, only Daniil, who looks like a human. Yeah. These are described as simple, and in the audiobook, they talk like burp, 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 burp.
But him and Daniil have like gone through some shit.
Yeah, that's true. They've trauma bonded as buddy cops.
Yeah, so I don't know. For him, I really do feel like it's different.
Yeah, and he has to overcome, I guess, his entire culture and upbringing.
But basically, he's like reasoning with himself as the rocket's like landing, and he's like, men live in the open all their lives. The spacers do so now. Our ancestors on Earth did it in the past. There is no real harm in lawlessness. It is only my mind that tells me differently, and it is wrong. But all that did not help. Something above and beyond reason cried out for walls and would have none of space.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that quote. Yeah, and then he meets Daniil.
Yeah, literally.
Of all people.
So he asked the robot that was the pilot, he's like, what's going to happen when we land? And the pilot's like, don't worry, they're going to... Because he was told to just hang out in this little room that they have in the ship. And... So he's like, oh, it's probably because they don't like me, da-da-da.
Yeah,
like,
he's going to infect it all.
Yeah, they're so disgusted by me. And they're like, a man's going to come to get you. And he's like, all right. So he's waiting, and then the door opens, and, like, Asimov writes, it's like, oh, standing at the door, there was the eye-color flash of a tall, bronze-haired figure entering, a spacer, one of those proud descendants of Earth who had disowned their heritage. The spacer spoke, because, like, imagine it's, like, a door, and there's, like, a light, and all you see is, like, the
backlit.
shape. Yeah, it's all backlit. You can't really tell who it is, and then you just hear, Partner Elijah.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Yeah. As soon as you hear that, you know.
You're like, Daniil!
Mm-hmm. And so he does love seeing his friend, to your point about he doesn't,
Yeah.
It's just these robots.
Daniil the spacer said, "It is pleasant you remember me, partner Elijah. Remember you." Bailey felt relief wash over him. This being was a bit of earth, a friend, a comfort, a savior. Bailey's hoped earnestly that the creature's unreadable eyes could not penetrate Bailey's mind and see that wild moment, just past and not yet entirely subsided, when all of Bailey had concentrated into a feeling of an intense friendship that was almost love. After all, one could not love as a friend this Daniil Olivois, who was not a man at all, but only a robot.
I love how he's French. Olivois.
How do you say it?
Olivois. Olivois, get over here.
Daniil Olivois.
I like your Olivois.
It sounds fancier.
It does, and he is a fancy pants robot.
How does it say it in your book?
Olivois.
Oh.
It's okay. Keep your Olivois.
I'm keeping my Olivois.
I also I want to read this other little cute quote here real quick. It's before that, he had an almost unbearable desire to rush the spacer and embrace him, to hug him wildly, and laugh and pound his back and do all the foolish things old friends did when meeting once again after separation.
Yeah.
He literally wants to be like, ah!
They're
He's
so
happy.
cute.
Yeah, for a robot that he hated and was freaked out to be assigned to, a book ago. So yeah, he asked him,
they're
are
really
you
friends?
Yeah, of course. So he wonders, is he assigned to the murder case too?
Have you not been informed of that? I regret not having told you at once. There was, of course, no sign of regret on the robot's perfect face.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's not technically. I mean, it is Bailey who's the head.
Bailey's been assigned as the head of the case, and Daniil has been assigned as a contingency that he had to come with Bailey in order to solve this. However, something interesting is that as they're
Bailey
leaving,
boy's picking up on.
Well, actually, I have a bunch of that highlighted because it goes, while I was talking to you earlier, I recalled an odd point, RX-2475, the pilot, when it told me I would have an escort, said a man would come for me. I remember that quite well.
Yeah, and I love Daniil listened quietly and said nothing.
Your papers were described to it, and it was given your name, but it was not quite given your name at that, was it, Daniil? Indeed, it was not given my entire name, agreed Daniil. Your name is not Daniil Olivois. But our Daniil Olivois, isn't it? Or in full, robot Daniil Olivois.
I love.
You're quite correct, partner Elijah. From which it all follows that RX-2475 was never informed that you are a robot. It was allowed to think of you as a man. With your man-like appearance, such a masquerade is possible? I have no quarrel with your reasoning. Then let's proceed. Bailey was feeling the germs of a kind of savage delight.
Which is the kind of ish that they were doing all throughout Foundation 4 and 5. These robot fellers and these Gaians who act like they're not manipulative and lying, because he says, I have no quarrel with your reasoning. He doesn't say, well, yeah, but here's why, here's this and that, or here's what I'm up to. Nope. Yep, there's no flaw in that. Anyways, moving on. It goes
further. A reasonable conclusion then is that the Solarian captain who informed the robot and the Solarian officials who informed the captain did not themselves know you were a robot. As I say, that is one reasonable conclusion, but perhaps not the only one. Is this one true? I believe it is.
Yeah, that's why he makes no effort to help him figure this out or just explain what he's doing.
So, since I was familiar with your ways and could work with you easily, it was thought reasonable to allow the Solarians to accept me as a man without actually deceiving them by a positive statement to that effect.
Mm-hmm. They lie. They don't lie, but they don't tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I say lying through
Bailey's
omission.
realizing that for whatever reason, while on this planet, Daniil is masquerading not just to other robots, but to the entire planet as a person.
To other humans.
And he knows there is some ulterior motive to this.
Yeah, to other humans that aren't used to seeing humans. I assume that's a huge part later in the book. Because...
I mean, they are suspicious of him, but because he's from Aurora, not because they think he's a robot.
Yeah, I know. We super got to pick apart what the security guy gets into. But we'll get there. Yeah, I know. I do love this quote you have here. Dr. Hans Falstaff and his associates might have purely personal and very human motives for demonstrating their own prize robot. So he's like, maybe there's nothing super deep here. Maybe they're just showing off and getting kicks out of, you guys are too dumb. We clearly have the better robots.
Oh, so the reason I highlighted that was because Solaria is supposedly, like Daniil has just explained at that point, that Solaria prides itself on
we got the
being
best.
one of, we're the best robot makers. And here is Aurora sending in a robot to masquerade as a person.
Yeah.
So, like, are they just doing it to be like, haha, look, we tricked you?
Which is a funny kind of mirroring of when Dr. Garrigal, I believe,
they would
guy
be
from the first...
asserting their own superiority by allowing the expert Solarians to be fooled into accepting a robot of Auroran handiwork as a fellow man.
Yeah, but last book we had the human expert, the Earthling expert, who couldn't tell.
Our guy fell.
Yeah, he couldn't tell that Daniil was a robot. So, kind of similar thing.
So, he's like wondering what it is, but he's like, I'm going to just put that aside and I will continue the masquerade with you, basically, Daniil. Like, he's going to...
Yeah, he's like, I like being with you anyways.
And
I have a friend here on this strange...
Yeah, I'm not giving up my friend for whatever. So, they're like, they get into this car and...
Yeah, a robo car.
Basically thought he was going to be stepping out into the open and is mentally preparing for this, and instead Daniil was like, what I have done is I have gotten, so they use these like tubes to get from ship to ship or to move cargo.
Of tubes.
Basically. Okay, the funniest part of all this, so Daniil has gotten the spacers to allow them to use tubes to connect things. So like there's a tube connecting the rocket ship to the door of the car they're going to go into, but the tube, because it's often used either in space or to move cargo, as they're going through it, it like actually starts to like crumple and they end up having to get on all fours and like crawl into the car.
For a terrified Earthman.
I was like,
not the best intro.
I can't believe that this is how we're getting into a car.
Yeah, to the most high-tech planet.
He's like all pissed because he's like, I don't think that we have to do, I'm being babied and nursemaided and like I didn't need him to do all this. And then they're like in the car and he's like, whatever. So he's going to start asking Daniil questions. And I don't remember if the questions here are after or before.
We get a little bit of the exposition dump, which I said, makes sense. Like the size of the planet.
Because he basically is briefed. Is he at this point told that he's here for a murder? Which ironically, the book opens with him being like, I really hope this reassignment isn't something like a spectacular murder like the last one. Because I could really use a break from all this stuff. Yeah. And then they're like, you're being sent away to investigate something crazy. And he gets there and it's like, it's a murder.
Murder most high. Yeah. The exposition dump, there's not too much point to it, just to lay out that most of the work is done by robots.
That, and I think to emphasize the amount of people, there's only 20,000 people on this entire planet. Yeah. The diameter is 9,500 miles.
Yeah. You don't have,
No, but just, I guess, for anyone that's good at picturing, it's a giant planet.
Mm-hmm. So Bailey must think...
This isn't like...
It's not a small moon.
I guess to give everyone an idea. Like,
it's not an asteroid colony.
Yeah, like it's not like that little house in Dragon Ball Z where King Kai lives, where you could just see it's like a little ball with a house on it. Yeah. That's not it. Mm-hmm. This is an actual planet, and people have like 20,000 people, and of those 20,000, each person or pair owns like,
I think,
thousands of acres of land.
Yeah. I was trying to see where... There are some 200 million working positronic robots. That's 10,000 robots per human. Yeah. That's what he said. Like, that's and Daniil says that's by far the highest such ratio among the Outer Worlds, partner Elijah. The next highest on Aurora is only 50 to 1. Yep. So, 50 to 1 compared to 10,000 to 1. And that's what is so unique about Solaria.
Yeah. So, we're in this car. We're getting some cool info. And then Bailey's like, I really want to look out the window. And he realizes, he's like, hey, Daniil, can this car like drop the top?
Yeah.
And he's like, I do not know what drop the top means, but this car is convertible and can be opened. And he's like, all right, open it.
To blast
and he's
Tupac.
like, I'm sorry, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
Because basically,
it's going to cause you harm. He's like,
Bailey tells him, let's rephrase that. I order you to lower the top.
Mm-hmm.
The creature was a robot, man-like or not. It had to follow orders. But Daniil did not move. He said, I must explain that it is my first concern to spare you harm. It has been clear to me, on the basis both of my instructions and of my own personal experience, that you would suffer harm at finding yourself in large empty spaces. I cannot, therefore, allow you to expose yourself to that. Yeah. So we're already seeing the first, and there's going to be a lot of playing with this idea of like Bailey being controlled by the laws of robotics.
Yeah. Which is pretty apt because they've handed over their whole civilization to robots.
And that's like, this is part of the first law, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Where a robot may not injure a human being or through an action allow a human being to come to harm.
Mm-hmm.
So in Daniil's mind, Bailey would have like a mental, like a panic attack or like...
Yeah, he knows, he's going to be mentally disturbed in some capacity.
Because he's so used to being
It's almost like
enclosed.
a dog, like he almost might hurt himself too. What if he panics and jumps out of the car or does something weird, or he's at least going to have mental distress.
So he's like frustrated because Daniil's basically like, I am not. Yeah,
but it makes Bailey feel babied, and
so it's cool because like the next thought he has is like, I could destroy him, but he wouldn't care because, and this is how Asimov's kind of like laying out the first, second, third laws, where like the second law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws, or that's the third law. So he's kind of like walking you through how robots would think. So if you've never read any Asimov books, this is your first introduction into the laws.
Yeah, the second was a robot must obey the orders given it by a human, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
So what's funny is like, it would not trouble Daniil to be destroyed if the alternative were breaking the first law, and Bailey did not wish to destroy Daniil, definitely not, because he actually likes Daniil. Yet he did want to see out the car. It was becoming an obsession with him. He couldn't allow this nurse-infant relationship to build up. So he like turns to Daniil and he's like, all right, well, hey, can you do me a favor and ask how many miles we have to the destination? Because he hasn't figured out how to talk. The car's driven by a robot. He hasn't figured out how to talk to them. There's like a contact. And so basically Daniil like clicks the contact and he's about to tell the driver like, oh, driver, how many miles to the destination? And Bailey like leans over and he's like, lower the top of the car.
Yeah. So he gives him an order, gives the other robot an order.
And then he like puts his hand on the contact. Like this is the most childish shit between him and Daniil, and I thought it was hilarious.
I love panting a bit.
And
Bailey
again,
stared at Daniil.
I only wish that these books were movies done in today's
done well in today's.
Done in today with someone that wants to keep this level of comedy in it. Like I don't want these books being made into this super serious sci-fi.
What's his name? Be a good comedic actor. The guy who does the whistle thing and the Galaxies, Guardians of the Galaxy. The guy.
Oh,
white dude, big jaw.
Yeah, he would be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need someone that's like that can be serious, but at the same time bring in this level of comedy. I have no idea. I can't tell you.
But somebody is both, serious, because his comedy's not over the top. Asimov, it's always like these subtle, funny situations. No, but it is like that. You need this. Like this is so funny to picture these grown men, and one of them's a robot but looks like a man, and being
he's
little
like,
kids.
Now he's got his hand there, and he's like, "You can't move my hand because I'm not gonna move it, and if you go to move it, it's gonna definitely break." And he's literally doing this so that. Like, he starts posing these dilemmas to the laws. Dilemma so that Daniil's positronic brain has to, weigh the probabilities.
Insane important foreshadowing.
Literally, the positronic brain had to weigh probabilities and translate them into opposing potentials. It meant just a bit more hesitation. Bailey said, it's too late. His race was won, the top was sliding back and pouring into the car now open, was the harsh white light of the Solarius sun.
So he's able to do something that the robot didn't want to do, Daniil, because it would hurt him. So he's able to make a robot do something that would hurt him.
Well, the thing is that, so Daniil also, like, the reason he did that was because Daniil always is going to weigh the two options. So, like, if by hurting you a little bit, he can keep you from killing yourself. Like, in the case of, I don't know, where you're going to, like, jump off a building or something, if tackling you and possibly harming you.
Yeah, even breaking a bone is better than that.
Yeah. So he will risk breaking your bone. Mm-hmm. So, but he needs a minute. His brain needs to weigh the two probabilities.
Even just seconds, but of course that's enough in this case.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it lays like you said, a precedent for this whole delay mechanism that wasn't really talked about in Caves of Steel. So it's kind of like a new thing, like this kind of lag that you can impose by providing conflicting.
It reminds me too of, do you remember, so if you watch anime, we don't watch a ton of anime, but we do watch some, and Ghost in the Shell has this really good episode where the Tachikomas, like they have these like robots that just do menial work, and they turn to her and they give her what's it called? It's like where it's a loop. They were like, if it's a logic loop or they give her a logic loop and she gets stuck.
Yeah.
So it's that type of moment that you can do with
these guys too, with even Daniil, who's the best of the best.
And you'll see that Bailey will play with this.
Mm-hmm.
He'll create his own versions of logic loops. Like, if you know the scene, I think it's like the Chachikomas ask her like, if I'm a liar. And I tell you...
That's an old classic one with the devil. Yeah. The devil, but you can't trust him. I forget how it goes.
I forget the specifics of it.
Yeah.
Are you going to look it up?
Yeah, because it's so great. I remember my dad used to tell me this all the time.
I mean, it's classic. We're like, oh, if I'm a liar, but I tell you the truth, will you know if I lied? Or like, am I able... It's basically someone who's always a liar capable of telling the truth. It's kind of like...
Yeah, what's the riddle... Yeah, one of them's an angel, one of them's... I can't believe I can't find it off the dome here.
So,
but yeah,
while you're looking that up, the coolest part is that it ends this chapter towards the end of it. For one fleeting split moment, he bent his head back because he's literally like staring out and freaking out a little bit. So he bent his head back and stared directly at Solarius' sun. He stared at it, unprotected by the diffusing glass of the city's uppermost level sun porches. He stared at the naked sun.
Yeah.
And what's hilarious is that literally in the next chapter, he like wakes up because he basically fainted.
Yeah, which I love. They mentioned this a bunch of times throughout these Asimov novels. And what was the nutrient deficiency back in the day? Because women used to always faint. It was like just a trope. And then, like, the guys do, too, in these stories. It isn't just... I'm like, was this a thing? What was going on? We need some magnesium or what? Why are these grown men fainting? Because that happened in the last one, too.
But we're the weak generation.
I know, right? We're the weak... That is a great point. Back when men were men and fainted.
So, we're now on chapter 3. A victim is named... Bailey says, "What happened? I regret," said Daniil, "that you have suffered harm despite my presence. The direct rays of the sun are damaging to the human eye, but I believe that the damage from the short exposure you suffered will not be permanent. When you look up, I was forced to pull you down and you lost consciousness." So it's funny, they describe as like, he opens his eyes and like, I don't know if you've ever done something dumb like stare at the sun, but
yeah.
If you were 5 at some point, you probably did.
Mm-hmm.
Or stared at a light that was too bright or something, and you get the black
little
blotches.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically, it's like the first time in his life he's had that, and he's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going blind.
And you mentioned we're in chapter 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's called the Liar's Paradox, by the way. I can't believe I can't pull this up now. I am not young Jamie. But anyways, we'll keep going on.
So basically they're pulling up to the estate and, Daniil's like, hey, don't worry. Like, we're just going to go through one more air tube into the house. And, Elijah's like, I mean, Daniil, I got to start getting used to being on, like, outside. I mean, I'm on this planet. Like, and Daniil's like, no, you don't. Like, it's gonna be fine. And he's like, I don't understand why you think that. And the thing is that
instantly explodes.
Daniil knows the culture of Solaria so much more than Elijah does. Bailey's just like he's thinking that this is just going to be Earth and he's going to just be able to investigate like he does everywhere else. But what he's going to quickly find out is that here on Solaria, nobody sees each other. Like seeing is even become a very...
two different verbs.
Yeah, there's seeing and there's viewing. And what you start to realize is that nobody sees each other in person.
Yeah.
And that's what they define as seeing. Seeing is where you are in the same room and you can touch each other and you're breathing the same air.
Yeah.
And
viewing is,
viewing
Skype.
is basically they have like cameras, I guess, all over, like however they can transmit.
And these
video.
are not Star Wars. Don't think like blue staticky shit. This is
he actually describes it like
it's 1-to-1. People don't know whether or not it's a tridimensional projection.
Yeah, when he comes in, basically the house that they're in, it's huge, and they're walking through a mansion, and he like asks Daniil like, "Am I like, or who's gonna be staying here in this house with us?" And Daniil's like, "I will be staying with you." He's like, "Okay," and Daniil's like, "And the robots will be with us."
Yeah,
he's like, "Yes." Anyone else? Since there's like 30,000 rooms in this place, because
he says, "Did they kick everyone out just to leave me rattling around alone in this mausoleum?"
Yeah,
because remember they live in these tiny apartment things. These little
he's used to his little tiny crowded apartment
rooms
that only has a living room and bedrooms.
Yeah,
the kitchen is communal. The bathroom's communal.
Yeah, let's pause there for a second. We got a baby break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Baby is doing great. She's asleep. You were describing the juxtaposition between now he's in this Solarian massive residence, super mansion, coming from the tiny little...
He goes from where everything is shared almost, like the library shared.
Everything but your dwelling.
Yeah.
Your tiny dwelling.
Here, literally everything has its own room. The library has a room.
Yeah, that's right. There's a funny thing.
There's a room to call
you
people.
might have highlighted it, but there's a part where he snickers. He's like, well, yeah... I remember there was one of these, like Cribs type shows where this person had a gift wrapping room. It was just a big ass room, bigger than our bedroom.
That was very common back in the day.
Yeah, okay. Not in my bracket.
Not in mine either, but I mean, I've seen it on TV shows, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean by, I guess, of that bracket. I never saw the people even had that. That was absurd even for them. But that's how Bailey feels, because he's mentioning like, well, yeah, this is the library. Like you said, like of course they have a fucking room for books. God forbid you just have it on the, bookshelf in your bedroom.
So, not even. Like, they either had a couple books in the house. Like, we see that in Caves of Steel, his son had a couple books. He was researching stuff for school.
Yeah.
And they might have had a couple book films to, like, read here or there. But, like, for the most part, everything was in... There was, like, a communal library.
Yeah,
that you would just go to.
His being grossed out by the shower, his bedroom has an attached bathroom. Yeah. That was so funny and a cool detail. I really love
like, this is unsanitary. I'm over here like, I need my bathroom.
I almost remembered it exact. He probably got it. He goes, this is both, he knows this is the peak of luxury. Like, man, what rank would one have to be to have this, the privilege of this? But also, it's kind of weird.
That's kind of weird.
You dropping a deuce, 10 feet away.
Right next to where you sleep.
Mm-hmm. And like cleaning your dirty body, and then bed's right over there.
Yeah, because it is kind of cool. Oh, Christ.
It's okay. Your computer is being hacked by second foundationers. Holy shit.
Computer's just tripping.
It's literally flickering.
Oh, no. I think it's updating. But that's okay, because
I have the notes here. You're good. I'll just go from memory.
Yeah. I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be fine.
Bill Gates, man, trying to silence the truth of the naked sun. Okay. No, you're good. Your computer is literally flickering over there. I have no clue.
So, So basically, he's gonna walk in because he's like, all right, where is the guy that we're supposed to talk to about stuff? And Daniil's like, oh, he's available to see you right now. He's here. And he's like, oh, let's just go talk to him. So they start talking to the head of security. Mm-hmm. And he describes the head of security as being way more Earthman-like than he thought. Because basically, for Earth people, the spacers have always been portrayed as Daniil, as like tall.
He's literally redhead with blue eyes and like perfect, like cut jaw picture 50s like superhero man.
And there are times he's been described as like kind of muscular. I would say like lean muscle.
Yeah, it's
like,
that lean. It's that pre-Arnold physique.
Thin, yeah.
Where it wasn't bulging crazy muscles, but super
and very tall,
wiry.
Like, they're not. They're not
no fat, no nothing, just pure lean muscle.
This guy's literally bald.
Yeah. So this big spacer guy from the greatest world ever supposedly is bald, and even his nose. Right? There's some detail about his nose is like looks funny.
All of it, just all of him is not spacer.
Yeah, he's like, I get that wouldn't be perfect, but for people that are genetic engineering obsessed, you know.
But here was a spacer who might have been an Earthman for all his appearance. He was bald, and his nose was misshapen too. Not much to be sure, but on a spacer, even a slight asymmetry was noteworthy. Mm-hmm. So basically, Bailey notices also that Daniil's standing some distance because he's like, all right, so we're still doing this masquerade of you're a human from Aurora.
Which is some balls. The robot's got robo balls because he's trying to trick the head of security for the Solarian planet.
Well, Daniil's already been on this planet for a while, so he's already been tricking people.
Yeah. But because he's standing far enough away so that the germs, like Daniil, if he's a real spacer person, he should be afraid of getting germs from Bailey. Yeah, he shouldn't
want to stand super close to Bailey.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm like, wouldn't Daniil technically also have to be wearing like gloves and nose
And he should have like the nose things in. You put a nose filter in, nobody's going to think you're a robot ever.
A little weird that I guess they could say, look, he's been with Bailey enough that maybe he's lowered his guard against him. So he doesn't
just go above and beyond. I mean, if I was a robot, I'd put a face mask on or something.
They solved the previous case, so maybe he feels that like people could be like, I don't know, maybe they're like friends now, and like maybe they're on that level where
and look, you could say
he's confident enough that he doesn't feel he needs the gloves and the nose filters, but he still won't stand next to him.
And it shows a little bit of I don't know, extra that. He doesn't even need that to try and trick him. Let's try and run an experiment without the, the nose. But will they really think he's a human? They could see his whole face, every little detail, and they still think he's a person.
So basically, this guy's sitting in this room, and he's talking to them, and he's like, so do you want to know why you're here? And Bailey's like, yeah, because nobody said anything. And he said, that was kind of by design. We didn't want anyone to tell you anything because we've brought you here to solve a murder.
A murder.
He's like, you brought me across space to solve a murder. You couldn't get your police to do it? And he's like, we don't have police on this planet.
Yeah.
It's tiny and widely scattered. There's no occasion for crime. Therefore, no occasion for police. Yeah. What Bailey's not realizing is that because of their culture, it doesn't make sense for them to have police. Like you're gonna find out
robots.
Little by little, the more Solarians you meet, that Solarians do not interact with Solarians.
Yeah,
they don't see each other in person. They don't go to each other's houses. They don't breathe the same air.
Jump a little bit at like a wife and husband might never see each other. Once a month? Was it?
They have scheduled seeing times,
and it's not even a whole day.
They will view each other as many times as necessary.
They'll Skype each other, but they won't.
Yeah, like I will FaceTime you as many times as I feel I need to. Which that's another thing. Like it's as many times as necessary. It's not, hey, I just felt like talking to you.
Yeah, even just for fun or social.
No, like whatever's the respectable Solarian amount that you should be talking to your husband.
Yeah.
And they're assigned. So, like, I guess to give you an idea, husbands and wives are assigned to each other. They're not, you don't get to pick who you house with. and they're assigned each other. I'm assuming, I haven't gotten there, but I'm going to go ahead and assume it's based somewhat on genetics and on a few other things.
Yeah. It's kind of like...
have you gotten to the point... Because there's a point where Bailey's going to go to bed and he's going to ask to, like, read some book films.
Yeah.
Did you got that point?
Yeah. That might be into 8, but, you know, it might dip a little bit into chapter 8, but it's not crazy.
Oh.
It's okay. But
I
why?
mean,
yeah, that he's all freaked out because...
It's just cool because... So he asked the robot to specifically... Because, of course, he had to, like, have the library robot bring him something. They don't do anything
for themselves, yeah.
Yeah. You learn that everything on this planet is done... There's a robot specialized for everything, which makes sense because there's 10,000 to 1, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You basically have one to pick your nose, wipe your butt.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. And then it's cool because you're going to get to learn about the robots through Daniil, where a robot will be like, would you like me to do this for you? And Bailey's like, no, I want to do it. And Daniil's like, I mean, kind of hurting its feelings.
Yeah, its purpose. Like, he keeps playing with that jamming, like, but he's made to make you feel better. Yeah, to make your life better.
If it's this robot's job to offer you water every time you walk in a room, and you just walk in and pour yourself a glass, the robot's like...
You're literally giving it an existential crisis in its little positronic mind.
That's my thing.
Mm-hmm. Like, what is its point of existing?
Yeah.
And it's
why
Daniil
am I here?
Kind of positing that there is some sort of theory of mind in there. How does it have emotion? What does that mean if it's just a robot?
We'll run into that quote. I highlighted it because at some point Bailey gets really mad and Daniil's like, but you're making him sad.
But in here where he's talking to Gruer, the head of security, he tells him that someone has been killed. He says, the deed is done. Yet, because they said there can't be a murder. He says, yet the deed is done. Ricane Del Mar is dead.
Yep.
That's our murder victim.
The names on this planet are...
Make you say jumpin' Jehoshaphat. That's for sure.
Is Asimov at his name in best.
Well, and then even so... I'll just read this. So, now who would be able to give me a personal account of the circumstances surrounding the murder, as firsthand as possible? Gruer's smile was grim and his eyes shifted to Daniil again and then away. His wife, plainclothesman. His wife? Yes, his name is Galadia, Gruer pronounced in 3 syllables, accenting the second. Because to your point of Asimov, I make sci-fi names. They're weird. They can't just be John and Bob.
I forgot that he explained how you're pronounced it. So I've just been running around calling her Gladia, like the Glad bag.
Yeah, Glad. Gladia.
Gladia.
Yeah.
Gladia.
You get the first
Gladia.
Look. That's how I said, but in the book, in the audiobook, I think it's Galadia.
Whatever.
That'd be 4 syllables. Yeah.
I ain't gonna get her name right.
Yeah, very. But you get our first sign of the children thing that she's gonna mention a ton. Bailey asks, "Any children?" Bailey's eyes were fixed on his notebook. When no answer came, he looked up. "Any children?" But Gruer's mouth had pursed up as though he thought that he had tasted something sour. He looked sick. Finally, he said, "I would scarcely know." And I think that's that's so intimate. Like, seeing a person in person is nuts.
Actually, it's not just that. It's like a whole other level.
And you're asking their social status too, or their...
No. You haven't gotten there, but like...
It's okay.
Do you mind if I...
Yeah, go ahead. It's not a plot.
It seems like their society doesn't know how it feels about kids.
Yeah, for sure.
But like kids are kind of
making kids.
They're
is
necessary,
gross.
But they are distasteful. But it's not just the making of them; it's even interacting with them. Because where I'm at, we're dealing with like saying the word is disgusting. Mm-hmm. Like the way they're made is disgusting, but also they're not made the way you think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's not with the boom boom.
I mean that's done, but the rest of it is done outside.
They take it out. They take fertilized.
Once the fetus is like a month old, they take it out.
Word.
And they grow it.
I don't remember that.
In a lab.
Funny. Yeah. Okay.
And like it goes through all this genetic.
Because you're up to chapter 11, right?
Yeah. But even then, they're like the idea of children, like the word children shouldn't be said. It's kind of disgusting. It's kind of ugh.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and like, even though it's necessary. So like at first I wasn't sure if Ladia
yeah, just say it how you'd think.
Disliked kids, or like was just thrown off, or like kids were like, at least for me, kids are holy. So to hear a woman be unable to pronounce the word children, I was like, are you unable to have kids or so? Like,
yeah.
But it actually turns out it's like it's a disgusting thought. Like you're told, you're basically assigned children, or how many children you're supposed to have, and then
it's crazy. I don't even know what to compare. I'm like, excretions? Like, imagine just in conversations, like, did you take a nice stinky shit today? Like, what?
Yeah,
oh my God, why are you asking me about
I haven't gotten far
my
enough
bowel
to
movements?
tell you. Probably in the next talk,
Yeah.
I'll know, but
yeah.
like so far from what I'm getting, it's a disgusting thing having to deal with
bodily
children.
process
I have like
that freaks
something
them out.
highlighted,
Yeah.
but even dealing with the actual child.
Well, I know, yeah, when they're born, and that must, just a prediction on my end, I'm not there, but from Foundation books, because they are raised by robots too. So
I don't
at
know
least
if
later
are.
they
I
are.
have a feeling they are. They're starting to get into that. But
until they might
but I
not
think
like their own childhood and be freaked out
part
by
of the crisis on this planet is that, like, if people find children disgusting, how are you supposed to continue your race?
And not just children, but childhood.
Yeah.
For these freedom-loving, you're just supposed to indulge in everything, but like kids with robots.
That's kind of funny. You've kind of triggered this thought where, like, so is this the planet that's just perpetually adult children? Like, they just want to drink and have fun and
but not with
play
other
their
people.
video games.
They're just playing video games by themselves and not.
I mean, not really. They'll play online.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But like, never actually see people.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, Asimov's good at predicting the future. Because this is all. Because I actually want to read this part here. So they're in the meeting with the head of security. And so when they're done, he's done explaining about the wife and all that. Brewer smiled and nodded. He said, "I will see you again. My robots will know the combination if you wish to talk to me." And he was gone. Bailey exclaimed sharply, because the guy's chair, the guy himself, everything it just disappeared, just blinks out of existence. I could teleport. And he says, and Daniil said calmly, "He was not there in the flesh at any time. It was a trimensional image. It seemed to me you would know. You have such things on Earth, not like this," muttered Bailey, because they have like hollow projectors, maybe more like the Star Wars kind of grainy, not realistic.
Like, he describes as the ones on Earth will have like an image and it'll have like a tiny flicker and like there's no way of mistaking it for reality. In this case, he literally could not discern between reality and this image. Yeah. Which has I also
to
would
play
like
into
to
the
emphasize
mystery here
on the information. So as far as the information that we've gotten, like, who was there and do we have a suspect, basically? Because the victim was a man we could scarcely afford to lose, a very inappropriate victim, and the circumstances of the murder are particularly brutal. Bailey knew that Daniil would at any time in the future be able to reproduce any conversation he heard or whatever, or of whatever length. He was a recording machine that walked and talked like a man.
What page is this?
I went back, so this is page 38.
Okay.
I put a little note there because I was like, oh, now he's just a recorder.
Okay. Yeah, I love. Is this where you get the thing that you were saying in the last talks in the Caves of Steel?
Yes, because the last talk, I was frustrated that, like, I get that a robot can't be a witness
because they have the anti-robot bias on Earth.
Yeah, but couldn't they technically just be put in, like, as evidence?
Yeah, you're like, what's the difference with a camera? His eye is a camera, so he's a talking camera.
If I can use a photo, could I not use it? But anyway.
And Daniil even says that. He goes, or later he says that, like, you admit a footprint counts as evidence, and that's far less human than I'm human.
I know. I'm like, really Asimov, like an entire book later, I almost feel like
oh, that makes sense.
he could hear my rant coming.
He must, like, you got friends and other writers and these things and people interested, like, I wouldn't, they're hashing this out.
In a past life, I told him, I was like,
yeah, exactly.
Did you
in some
not
cool
think this
cigar
through?
lounge that allowed women?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how that would work.
So Brewer said, no, I cannot say the murder is completely unknown. In fact, there is only one person that can possibly have done the deed. Are you sure that you don't mean only one person who is likely to have done the deed? Mm-hmm. Bailey distrusted overstatement and
I love that part.
had no liking for the armchair deducer who discovered certainty rather than probability in the workings of logic.
Me neither, Bailey.
No, only one possible person. Anyone else is impossible. Completely impossible. Completely, I assure you. Then you have no problem. On the contrary, we do have a problem. That one person couldn't have done it either.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. Just so everyone has an idea of why we've been brought into this investigation. There's been a murder. We have a suspect. We don't think she did it.
Yeah, she's both the only person that could, and it's impossible, in quotes, because this guy has terrible logic.
And the spoiler is that they suspect the wife.
Yeah, it's the wife. Gladia, however you want to say it.
Gladia.
I'm trying to see. Yeah, they're just talking about his room here. And we're coming up to anything else from 3?
What do Solarians do for themselves? As for the Solarians, they do what they choose. No robot performs his duty if ordered not to, except, of course, where the performance is necessary to the well-being of the human.
And it's him realizing...
And how the bedroom... Everything was difficult. He had already gone through the unnerving experience of showering in a stall that actually adjoined the bedroom. It was the height of luxury in a way, yet on the other hand, it seemed an unsanitary arrangement. And Bailey stared somberly at the bed. It was too large. The whole bedroom was too large. There were no blankets to burrow under, only sheets. They would make a poor enclosure.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking he wants to just, like, cuddle under the blankets and just, like, dome himself up.
I do have huge sympathy for that.
Horrible.
Oh my god, dome himself up. The dog got the robo.
If there isn't one of these talks where I say something ridiculous, it didn't happen.
Inspector Gadget over there. We are on chapter 4, A Woman is Viewed, and we get a lot of stuff, which we already kind of hinted at, that about the birth control. They must have birth control to stay at.
In this last chapter, there's just one thing that I found interesting. On the Foundation book, when we get to Solaria, they're living underground, right?
See?
So...
As I say, they kind of are now.
It's funny because he's in bed. They are, but they're not. They're actual houses.
Yeah, that's how I pictured it too. But then so much, even when you get to her house, so much of it's underground too. It's so big. But
eventually Solaria is literally, you go to the planet, there's nothing, there are no buildings on the top side.
Yeah, I don't remember, there's none, or effectively it's more like a lobby entrance to their underground. Like effectively what you're saying, yeah, they live underground.
Yeah.
Even if there was some sort of structure on top.
He wanted terribly to get out of bed right now, dress and walk to her. His thoughts grew mistier. He started thinking of Jessie.
Yeah.
If there were only a tunnel, a nice safe tunnel burrowing its way through safe, solid rock and metal from Solaria to Earth, he would walk and walk and walk. I just thought.
That's what they're doing. Yeah, because they live underground in caves of steel on Earth. And I was saying in the last talk that it's funny, Solaria is a smaller version. They're all communal, like I said, it's like optimistic communism on Earth. Everybody's all getting along, all living together. It's just perpetual roommates, almost, except for your actual room. Whereas here, they're all alone, but also in caves underground, essentially.
And, he's a little suspicious that something is going on between Spacer worlds because he knows Daniil is still masquerading as a person and a real man, and why would he do that? And so there's a line here where it says he's trapped on Solaria by the necessities of his assignment. He was trapped on Earth. He was trapped by Earth's danger, trapped in an environment he could scarcely endure, trapped by a responsibility he could not shirk. And to add to all of this, he was trapped somehow in the midst of a Spacer conflict, the nature of which he did not understand.
And they know that the little they know of the spacers, they know they're not unified. It's not like there's one government. There's a United States
know that
of
there's
spacers.
conflict between them. So a woman is viewed.
Yeah, chapter 4.
So, by the way, this was so funny for me because I thought Daniil got a little testy.
Daniil got testy.
A little bit because, so we're going to, the next day we're going to wake up and we're actually going to view. So that's what they call when they like call each other.
Yeah.
It's called viewing. So we're going to call this lady through FaceTime basically.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to answer us like while she's in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
So she's in her little like
drying off pod that you don't see anything.
Yeah, she's basically, I picture like a shower stall, like all you see is like the top of her head or something. And she's going to step out and she's just going to be like naked.
Wow.
And Elijah's going to literally freak out.
No, Mom. I'm a married man, damn it.
He actually is going to be like,
Yeah, there's a whole part.
I don't know how I feel about this.
About how Jesse would feel.
Yeah.
And he comments on how she's really thin and attractive and everything's perfect and she's like around 25. And
yeah, she looks 25. It turns out she's like 33. But
Solarian genes, baby.
Yeah. So, But
why was he testy? Or where was he testy in that?
Because Daniil's basically, so this is the only suspect that we have, and she makes a big deal of how she's like read up on Earth people because she knew they were going to get this Earth guy to come, and she has like, she feels horrible because she didn't think when she answered the call to have the robots close the windows so that he can't see like outside. That's like a huge, constantly recurring thing.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, I didn't realize that me being naked would be. She has a funny line.
She's like, but you were talking to me. You knew I was naked in the blow dryer, basically, device. It's like, yeah, but I couldn't see you. And is that where she explains, like, you're not seeing me now anyways. You're viewing me.
Yeah. So it, like, you get this, you start to find out that, like, it's becoming very normal to view people doing whatever. They could be naked, they could be not naked, they could be eating, they could be, it's totally normal to just drop into their life at any point in time.
Yeah.
And they will not stop what they're doing. You can just view them like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's not like you're seeing me naked.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're here in person. Seeing me through a camera naked, that's not the same.
I can't think of what I could compare it to that. Isn't that funny? Like, I guess, like, talking on the phone, you might be in the bathroom, but you're not just going to, like, talk to somebody, come on in the bathroom and talk to me. Like, we would. We're married for a while.
Yeah.
But, like, a stranger, you don't have your friends over. You could talk to your friends on the toilet, but obviously you're not going to be on the toilet in their presence. But I'm like, but it's not the same. They don't see you.
I don't call, like...
I mean, even if they're close friends... that you want to be naked around.
There's very few people I would FaceTime with while they poop.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Even FaceTime feels different, and obviously being in full video.
And I don't know who I would see naked.
I'm just saying the equivalent. Like, to her, she sees it as no different than if I'm naked talking on the phone.
I mean, but you could
Which I don't know that I would really do either, but...
Like, at least with the phone, you can, even if I'm naked... You're just going to see my face.
It's the same sense organ.
No,
I'm seeing you with my eyes, whether it's full 3D lifelike transmission.
Anyway,
so it's a little silly, but I guess, they've been like this for years, hundreds of years.
Daniil gets testy about this because he feels like, as the only suspect in this case, wouldn't it be beneficial if she were to somehow use her prowess, knowing that Earthmen are susceptible to
because he says she has to know that this is not the norm on Earth if she read up so much on Earth.
Yeah. So she's got to know what she was doing.
I was like, not necessarily. I don't know. I could see that not slipping through, but for the plot, we should act like she knew.
I do think. I'm like, bullshit, but I do think, and then later, now that I've read further, I'm like, all right, maybe not.
Yeah, come on. It's just their culture. Let her prance around.
You're gonna die.
I gotta save my dog, Bailey. He's just doing his job. He's saving the galaxy.
I found the chapter where basically Bailey was going to try to call her directly instead of having the robot do it. And Daniil was like, why don't you really should let the robot do it. And he said, are you trying to tell me, Daniil, that it hurts the robot to have me do its work?
Yeah.
As you know, partner Elijah, pain in the human sense is not applicable to robotic reactions. Bailey shrugged. Then, nevertheless, went on Daniil, the experience which the robot undergoes is as upsetting to it as pain is to a human, as nearly as I can judge. Consider too, said Daniil, that to cause distress to a robot might be considered on the part of our host to be an act of impoliteness, since in a society such as this, there must be a number of more or less rigid beliefs concerning how it is proper to treat a robot and how it is not. To offend our host would scarcely make our task easier.
Yeah, which I think was the more detailed point, I guess, but I'm like, but I also don't see them seeing them as too important.
So the incident had not been without its uses. It was an educational example of how remorseless a robotic society could be. Once brought into existence, robots were not so easily removed, and a human who wished to dispense with them, even temporarily, found he could not.
Yeah. Which is Asimov building on his own actual real-world philosophy here. Because he's a tech optimist, and going forward in time, not trying to go back.
Yeah.
But, so of course, we're going to explore through the whole robot series different ways that could play out that we want to avoid. Examples to be avoided. Bailey longed for his pipe. He's smoking a pipe all through.
So, and it's cool, you find out that on Solaria, all the robots that do the connecting of the viewers, or the whatever image,
transdimension, the transducer lobes are the later.
Those are later.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's just this basically the robots that call each other. They have like a catalog of every person and can contact everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
Because there's only like 20,000 of them, and Bailey's like, well, what if we call the wrong lady? And they're like, you can't.
Who knows what we'll see?
Well, because like the same way that there might be another Freddy or another Lisa,
the names. Yeah.
And they're like, no, the way it works here is that a name can't be used twice. So like for every person born, it has to have a unique name. It can't have a repeating name.
They got
because
gamer
there's only
tags.
22,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I
20,
guess when you go to type it in.
Yeah, this name has been taken.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This name is being used right now.
Yeah. 420.
And they live to be like 300.
Scope. Mm-hmm.
So, that name's not available for the next 300
Yeah, really.
years.
I was making a funny point that she is a Jezebel when that was the whole like playing with Bailey's wife being named Jezebel and, ooh, I'm so naughty. Whereas this chick actually showing off the goods to an Earthman.
She actually is a little flirty, but
a little too much.
I don't know. I'm a bit of the jealous type. I'm not a fan of this lady.
We're just trying to save the galaxy out here.
So
and we'll do anything we need to.
To describe her a little bit, she's about 5'2" in height. That was not typical, at least not in Bailey's way of thinking. Spacer women were supposed to be lean toward the tall and stately. Nor was her hair the spacer bronze. It was light brown, tinging toward yellow, and worn moderately long. At the moment, it was fluffed out in what Bailey imagined must be a stream of warm air. The whole picture was quite pleasing.
She's literally like, what's the Marilyn Monroe, like on the thing, on the air vent thing, like blowing, like,
you've called.
Oh, yeah, you just caught me in my candid little moment here, with my hair blowing in the wind. So yeah, they got, he wants to actually meet her, of course, too, but.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I started highlighting all the times he finds her very attractive.
Yeah,
her arms are slim and graceful. Very attractive, Bailey thought. Then he thought uneasily, Jesse wouldn't like this.
Mm-hmm.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's basically that whole chapter there. Well, of course. And then they start actually discussing the crime in Chapter 5. And Chapter 5 is where she starts to explain the whole viewing versus...
Oh, that was the funny thing. So she steps out, and this is where, I really need... If you're out there, future director of this movie, and you make this book into a movie, you need to keep the comedy, because I swear this book is so much funnier than Caves of Steel even.
Wow.
Like, imagine this lady comes out of the dryer box and she's like butt naked, and Bailey like freaks out, and he like jumps out of the chair where he was calling her from, and he's like turned around and his hair's red, and he's just like turning around, and Daniil the robot's like, "It would be better, Miss Del Mar, if after you have made contact with the robot, you would return to the stall, or, failing that, proceed to put on some articles of clothing." Gladia looked down at her nudity in surprise and said, "Well, of course, like..."
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna walk around naked.
Yeah.
And I need that scene done where like the actor like freaks out and she's like, "What is wrong with you?"
The actor's gonna be that one. What's the one they're all freaking out about now? The blonde chick with the heavies. It's the one Remember John and Lizzie were all making fun of. Yeah.
No.
Don't worry. Don't worry. The casting will be very easy for that.
I live under the largest mountain.
Yeah.
Like me and the dwarves.
Yeah.
We are hiding from smoke.
From smoke. But yeah, so this is where they start to explain the difference of the seeing and viewing. This is where we actually get the quote.
Yeah.
That's in chapter 5, of course. And so they're moving on. He asks about the marriage, and this is where we get the details on that they don't see each other often. Bailey winced. "You did live in the same mansion, I thought." And he says, "Of course we did. We were married, but I had my quarters and he had his. He had a very important career, which took much of his time, and I have my own work. We viewed each other whenever necessary." So they're FaceTiming from other parts of the same mansion.
Yeah. Like if I was in the room, I've done that only a couple times with Freddie, and it's usually because he's outside the house in like the yard, and I'm inside and
under the naked sun,
and I can't get up. So I like it was
She's
especially when
baby-bound.
the baby was like
early
tiny
baby months,
and like breastfeeding, and I was like super new at it. Now I admit, now I can actually be mobile if I have to.
She's he says he saw you, didn't he? He goes, "It's not a thing one talks about, but he did see me. And do you have any children?" Gladia jumped to her feet in obvious agitation. "That's too much. Of all the indecent..." Like, she's just walking around naked there, and now, but that, like you said, the children
like,
part is
that
literally...
That is so, how dare you?
And he gets that all pinned down. But yes, they did see each other when scheduled. And basically saying they would hanky-pank, but there's no children because none were assigned.
I actually don't know.
I know. She hurried the next words. That's true.
He was assigned to me, and well, we did see each other when scheduled, and she heard the next words. "And if you must know, we don't have children because none have been assigned us yet. I don't see what all that has to do with being sorry over someone being dead. And I think it's because hanky-pank is also probably indecent and unpleasant. Like, to give you guys an idea, Solarians are not used to having to share the same air with each other.
Yeah.
Like, Bailey keeps thinking that it's because he's an Earthman, and I'm like, Bailey, it is a cultural issue on this planet. Like, these people do not want to be, and I totally understand now why Solaria decided it would be better and easier if they just got rid of the two separate genders and made one. Because they can't.
It's so gross.
Like, they cannot think. Like, sex must be so gross for them. Like, that must be such a crude and disgusting
and a strange thing.
action that you have to do.
And the only thing
because they
that
even
you have to
talk
do like
about
that.
Doctors not being able to. So as they question her, she's going to talk about how basically what had happened was she was scheduled to see her husband, see him.
In the flesh, in the real flesh.
He always arrived promptly, and this time he did the same thing he always did. And it was a short visit, and he had a lab like in her, what she calls her quarters. So she has her quarters and his quarters. His quarters has the more sophisticated lab, but her quarters had like a little mini lab where he could like go work. Which I'm like, aren't you guys in the same mansion? But whatever. So some of these mansions are very big. And it's my Earth brain thinking. I'm like, maybe it really would take so long that, like, I've already spent most of the day over here. I'll just work on this side of the house.
They literally get lost. Bailey would get lost, and later, I think, somewhere it talks about getting lost.
No, he talks about how he could.
Yeah.
It was cool, because, like, in Foundation 5, sorry, side tangent, the guy was showing off, Bander was showing off how he could, like, turn the lights on and off when they walk by, but when Bailey was walking by, the lights would turn on and off.
Yeah.
So I was like, what?
Was he actually doing it? Yeah.
What motion sensor shit
is it like a little kid, like, watch this, I can open the doors at the grocery store with my mind.
Right? Like,
it's like, whoa, they did open.
It's not like, Bander,
yeah.
were you joshing us? Anyway. I
You're
have the best
hermaphroditic
lingo.
alien. Always with the tricks.
So, she discovered the body, because what happened was that he went down to his lab on her side of the quarters, and she heard a shout. When she goes running down there, she sees his body, and he's been, like, smashed across the head with something.
Yeah.
And
the skull is crushed in. We get
basically,
details.
like, calls the robots and then faints.
Yeah.
So the robots come in, and they call the doctor, and they call the guy's lab, because this was the order of operations. Call the doctor for the lady that fainted. Call the lab and let the lab know, hey, he's never coming back to work because he's dead.
Yeah.
And then clean up the mess.
Yeah.
So then they prepared the body and they cleaned up all the evidence. And, like, this is a constant issue on this planet where, like, the robots are just doing what they're supposed to. So these robots are supposed to keep everything tidy. They don't realize that they're wiping away evidence. And so they're just going to clean everything up in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Super side tangent from watching a lot of true crime and murder things and all that. Don't do that. You hear that so much time with missing persons stuff. That they go to the person's house that it's missing, and then they help them out by cleaning up their house.
Don't do that.
Yeah. PSA, you learned something new today.
Yeah, because you wipe away all the evidence.
Yeah, I forgot we were watching. It was nuts. I couldn't
Probably
believe.
Forensic Files.
Yeah, who knows? Probably. And yeah, she's still traumatized. She raised her hands to her
Shout out to
ears as though to shut it out. The memory and the sound, like she was reliving it. And she does seem super traumatized.
Yeah. Well, because what happened is that she fainted. And then we find out that the doctor, because this is where it gets, so it starts to get weird, and you start to really, like, peel back the layers of how ridiculous this society is.
Yeah.
So she wakes up, and the doctor's attending to her. But the doctor actually came in person and saw her. So when she woke up, and the doctor, like, she thought he was just viewing her.
Yeah.
Which is it's so realistic you wouldn't know. But when he actually touched her, she, like, freaked the hell out.
Yeah.
And she actually screamed in terror. And she's like, I didn't mean to. He's a very nice guy. But it caught me off guard that he was actually there.
And she feels bad for him, and that job has to be the grossest job you could imagine.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I mean, sometimes doctors do just have to be in person.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Sometimes doctors just have to touch you.
Yeah.
Like,
Freaky.
yeah, they're like, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, yeah. Literally is like a
And there's like 10
Herculean.
doctors on, like, the planet, by the way.
I imagine. For all
I don't know if you got that
20,000 people. I don't think I got that detail, but anything else from this chapter? I'm trying to see in chapter 5.
My husband never saw anyone except me, not since he was a boy. He certainly wasn't the sort to see anyone. Not Ricane. He was very strict, very custom-abiding.
Yeah. That was a good quote, lower world building quote.
So everyone that we talk to pertaining to this husband is going to tell us the same thing. He was a very good Solarian.
Yeah. And that people really aren't ever seeing each other in the flesh.
No, they're always viewing. Like, her
Like, even if
saying
this
that
guy
her
is a little
husband never
extreme-
saw anyone, it's literally that he never saw anyone.
It's not
in
an exaggeration. It's not, you know,
He
you never
viewed
go
them.
outside. Like, you know, they literally never. So yeah, I think we're good. Chapter 6, right?
I think so. Just whoever, if anything like that had been there, I imagine you would have seen it. It follows in that a handheld.
Yeah, this is.
So Bailey's gonna cross off, like, could it have been some kind of equipment that fell on him? And if she didn't see anything like that, it has to have been a hand that swung and hit, that crushed his skull in. Some person had to be within 4 feet of your husband to do that. So someone did see him. No one would, she said earnestly. A Solarian just wouldn't see anyone.
Yeah.
A Solarian who would commit murder wouldn't stick at a bit of seeing, would you?
Yeah.
On Earth, he had known the case of a perfectly conscienceless murderer who had been caught only because he could not bring himself to violate the custom of absolute silence in the community bathroom. So he's basically trying to make the case to her, like, if someone committed murder, wouldn't they not care about whether they saw someone or not?
I forgot the exact example.
He also knows of a case where...
Yeah, but there's another... I mean, even in Caves of Steel, there was an example of... Oh, man, somebody... I forget what the example was, but... Yeah.
Like something being so taboo that even the worst of the worst don't break that rule.
Yeah. But, like you said, like, I mean, they might. This is clearly somebody's doing some crazy shit. Imagine how intense a murder is to... They don't even like touching each other, but somebody's gonna murder someone.
Yeah.
Flesh on flesh murder.
It's traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
We also have... Because she's been kind of asking him questions too. So she's like, do you have a wife assigned to you? I'm married. I don't know about the assignment part. And I know you see your wife anytime that you want to, and she sees you, and neither of you thinks anything of it. Bailey nodded. Well, when you see her, suppose you just want to... And she lifted her hands elbow high, pausing as though searching for the proper phrase. She tried again. Can you just... any time? She let it dangle. Well, never mind. I don't know why I should bother you with that sort of thing right now anyway. And I'm like, that's where I think she is being a little flirty.
Yeah, she's saying... And I think she's hinting at, like you were saying, maybe they weren't having any hanky-pank.
I don't think they were.
Because she's wondering, like, that's gotta be nuts. And that's why I'm saying there is some attraction to Earth people that it's gotta be seen as...
It's gotta be
disgusting,
disgusting,
word it, but like kind of a little...
if some people are like, I mean, it must be interesting being able to do that whenever you want.
Yeah, and like prowess, there's a bravery or a sort of naughtiness to being not disgusted by it. Like,
so, this is also, at the end of this chapter, she admits, a joyless smile flickered over the girl's face. I know who he thinks did it. All right, who? She puts a small hand on her breast. I.
Yeah, aw. Little old... What's the stupid meme?
So Daniil backs, like, he agrees. He says, the social situation on Solaria is such that even she cannot possibly present anything else as the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly Agent Gruer would find it reasonable, even obligatory, to believe that a Solarian husband would be seen only by his wife. Since only one person could be in seeing range, only one person could be their murderer, or murderess, rather.
Murderess.
Agent Gruer, you will remember, said that only one person could have done it. Anyone else he considered impossible. Well, he also said Bailey, that the one person couldn't have done it either.
Yeah, pointing out this guy has terrible logic. I get his point. They just can't think outside their cultural norm, which we played with in the last one.
They start bickering in front of her.
Yeah. But like in the last, it's the same paradigm. Like the Earth man couldn't picture going through the fields to commit this murder. These guys can't think of any other way around their cultural norms.
Who could have done it?
Yeah.
Bailey could still feel the impact of those quite extraordinary gray eyes.
Oh boy. Yeah, he did think of her as a murderess.
She might say she was used to having people think her a murderess, but that was very obviously a lie. Her anger spoke more truly than her words. Bailey wondered of how many other lies she was capable of.
Mm-hmm. Is this, you have this highlighted here, is this Daniil? Yeah, accusing her of playing him?
Yeah, that's where I told you he gets testy.
Yeah, okay. That I as an Auroran... Yeah, in fact, one might have thought that she would logically have expected that I, as an Auroran, would have taken the lead in the investigation, yet she concentrated on you. And what do you deduce from this? That it was upon you, partner Elijah, that she pinned her hopes. You were the Earthman. Yeah. And that's where he gets into, like, she had to know.
Yeah.
All your little, that
Since she has
was...
studied Earth, it is quite reasonable to suppose that she discovered one weakness Earthmen possess. She might know of the nudity taboo and of how much a display must impress an Earthman. She explained about viewing, so she did, yet did it seem entirely convincing to you? Twice she allowed herself to be seen in what you would consider a state of improper clothing. Because while she's telling the story, she's like in a robe, and she even asked him, she's like, do you mind if I wear this?
Yeah.
And like her legs sticking out in the slit, and he's like, no, it's okay, you can wear that. And then as she's telling the story, like it falls off and like her boobies come out, and she's like, oh my god, I didn't even notice.
Yeah. I'm just always naked so much over here by myself. You have my number anytime you need to hollow beam into here.
Your conclusion, said Bailey, is that she was trying to seduce me. Is that it? Seduce you away from your professional impersonality. So it would seem to me. And
what is he, a wife bot? Am I right, guys?
Though I cannot share human reactions to stimuli, I would judge from what has been imprinted in my instruction circuits that the lady meets any reasonable standard of physical attraction. Look, said Bailey uncomfortably, regardless of what effect she might have had on me, I am still an officer of the law in full possession of my senses of professional ethics. Get that straight. Now let's see the report.
Yeah. And also, I can't stand up right now, but we're gonna go back.
I got a Woody, but you're killing it.
Yeah.
So
leave, I order you as a robot.
Gruer, the head of security, had promised to send us the reports that they had done on their version of the investigations, because basically they did their own investigating, but they're not very, he felt like it wasn't very good. They don't know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But they sent it in. He promised them that the report would be there in the morning. So he sends them the report, and it gets there while they're talking to this lady. Or it got there in the morning, but because Bailey wanted to talk to the lady, Daniil held it off giving it to him until now. So he gives him the report, and Bailey reads it in silence, and then he sees that the report brings in a new item. He said, the robot.
Yeah.
What could that mean?
Yeah.
Very easily. Because Daniil said, you asked the wrong question. You asked if he was alone when she found the body. You asked if anyone else had been present at the death sentence. A robot isn't anyone else.
And he compares it to, he's like, yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't have asked if there was a table in the room. Like, so it's just property. It's just... What's
kind of cool is that, I don't know if you remember, in the first book, they mentioned that if a robot does something that goes against the laws, like the positronic brain will actually start to like have issues. So we're going to see some of that, because this is probably jumping ahead, but they're going to talk to Gruer again. And Gruer's going to tell them that the reason that he didn't even think the robot was that big a deal was... actually, I think
it's the next page. The robot's reported having found her there together with the dead body, and the robot, it's right underneath. Nor could anything be discovered from the robot in question. It was not in working order. When found, its motions were disorganized, and so apparently the functioning of its positronic brain.
Oh, but it doesn't say there. I think they find out from Gruer.
But this is super important. I might as well just read the next part. Its only activity that had any trace of organization was its constant repetition of, you're going to kill me, you're going to kill me, you're going to kill me.
Yeah. I thought that was so important.
It's like stuck on this
my
final moment.
My note there was that...
Yeah, that's true. You got a note.
I wonder if that's like either a recording that it's playing back...
Like these parrots, these cockatoos that get killed or something, or like they hear their owner getting killed. You heard stories of that. It's like the robot who's saying that too, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or was the robot saying that too? Because what ends up happening in a different chapter, just to jump around, is that there's going to be an incident. Oh, it's in this chapter. Sorry. While we're talking to Gruer, he's going to tell Bailey some information about something that he's suspicious of that's happening on the planet. It's at a moment that they send Daniil away. Because he's still suspicious that Daniil's an Aurora, and he doesn't want him knowing what's happening intimately on the planet.
Oh,
but
this is where he reveals all this? Okay.
Yeah, but he doesn't mind Bailey knowing.
Yeah.
And so he gets, like, he had asked for water, and he drinks his, like, water, and in drinking it, he starts to immediately, like, Bailey's watching him, and he's like, it's burning. So, like, his water's been, I don't know why I'm saying like so much, but I'm working on it, guys. So his water, and I'm working on both. The water was poisoned. It's a lot. I'm also, like, keeping a kid alive.
Mm-hmm. And she is wriggling on the camera. But don't worry about that. You stay focused.
When he's poisoned, he falls over. They call the robots over. All the robots at his location, there's nothing they could do because they're viewing him. They start they mobilize. They call the doctor. They start cleaning up the stuff.
Yeah.
Because Bailey forgot. Yeah, he literally falls over.
Mm-hmm. He drank something. It looks like obviously poison in the water.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? Oh, so one of the robot that gave him the water is asked to come over, like, after he's been taken away and hopefully is being saved. Bailey asked to speak to the robot that served him the water, and witnessing the action was so shocking.
Yeah, it hurting its master.
Both this robot and Daniil, I believe Daniil also goes into, like, a state of shock. Because for the positronic brains of these robots to witness a human being injured, even in inaction. But this robot is literally the one that served the water.
Yeah, it's a gray area. It did it, but it doesn't know why.
It's like language gets messed up. It walks in with the limp. It's just a mess, to give you an idea. We'll get to those quotes.
Yeah.
There's just one quote on this page I really don't want to lose
because
I thought it was hilarious, and it's a side quest.
Do it.
Hannes Gruer was still eating when contact was established. He ate slowly, choosing each mouthful carefully from a variety of dishes, peering at each anxiously as though searching for some hidden combination he would find most satisfactory. Do you know why I highlighted this?
Your note says one word. It says me.
Yes, because Freddie always picks on me, and he's always like, why does it look like you're hunting? Like, because I'll be eating, and then I'll want to, like, match.
Oh, I'd do that.
No, you always specifically are like, what are you doing? Like, and I don't know.
You must just do it like a weirdo. But I'd do the same thing. You weirdo. What are you, an earthling?
You don't know.
Yeah, I know, right? I'll never know. You're probably a robot. This can't be true. You must be a robo sent from the aliens. They get into the murder, and they just all can't figure out how she could have done it, why she would do it, and they're going over the body, how it was moved by the robots, like you said.
Find the quote where the robot starts talking.
Mm-hmm. And they even get into, like...
Oh yeah, it was funny. So, because when Bailey has Daniil leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I remember, because Gruer asked Daniil to go make sure all the windows are closed and blacked out. Because plainclothes Bailey may be feeling the effects of open space, and Daniil's like, that is a great idea. I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's like, we can't have another one.
And Gruer's like, that was easier than I thought. I planned so many ways of getting you alone. I never thought the Auroran would leave at a simple request.
Yeah.
And yet I could think of nothing else to do.
Because he doesn't know he's a robot. I mean, that, like, super proves, strikes home, like, he doesn't just order him like a robot.
Yeah, he's like terror. He
has to come up
person.
with... Yeah.
So the Solarian leaned forward. There's something more to this than murder. I am not concerned only with the matter of who did it. There are parties on Solaria, secret organizations. Bailey stared. Surely I can't help you there. Of course you can. Now understand this. Dr. Del Mar was a traditionalist. He believed in the old ways, the good ways, but there are new forces among us. Forces for change, and Del Mar has been silenced.
Yeah.
One thing that Del Mar told me, though, the whole human race is in danger.
Yeah, which is just expanding on our issue from Caves of Steel. This guy, it's paralleling the medievalists versus some other newer force.
I feel like this is all going to connect to the kids.
Yeah.
But I might be jumping the gun.
No, it makes sense. Have so much stress on it.
Because I do wonder. So, like, there's stuff you find out later, but we'll continue.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bailey says, "Why do you think I can help? Because you're an Earthman." And Gruer said, "Do you understand? We on Solaria have no experience with these things. In a way, we don't understand people. There are too few of us here. It seems to me that you Earthmen must understand people far better than we do, just by living among such crowds of them. And a detective more than anyone. Isn't that so? From the beginning, I felt we needed an Earthman." Gruer hesitated, then added, "It's not easy to ask an Earthman to help, but I must do so. Remember, whatever it is, the human race is in danger. Earth too."
And it's right after this conversation that we have the robot come in, give him his water, and he clutches his throat, whispering hoarsely, "Burning, burning." The glass fell from his hand, its contents spilling, and Gruer dropped with it, his face distorted with pain. But like you said, he isn't killed there.
So,
Chapter
poor
7.
Daniel comes in, and he's like, "What happened, partner? A lie? Huh?"
Yeah.
He's just so sad. Robots! He just freaks out. No
it is cool to
explanation
see like how it works. Just screaming. He shouts, "Robots of Hannes Gruer, your master is hurt. Robots."
I just feel like Daniel's like, "My people!
Robots
Save him.
assemble. Do your thing."
What I'm witnessing, I'm being tortured. Help him!"
Yeah, code red.
Someone, I
Our
like...
entire existence is
I
to
can't
prevent
imagine
this.
being Daniel in this case, because immediately the first thing he wants to do is save this man, and he is so helpless.
Just watching on Zoom. His little office call. But yeah, the robots will scatter around, and then, of course, Elijah thinks it's a poison.
Daniel said, "It is not well with my mechanism to see a human being come to harm. There was nothing you could do. That I understand, and yet it is as though there were certain cloggings in my thought paths. In human terms, what I feel might be the equivalent of shock."
Yeah.
If that's so, get over it.
I did. That was so funny.
Bailey felt neither patience nor sympathy for a queasy robot. Like,
A
dude,
queasy
you've been
robot.
freaking out every time you step outside. Cut him some slack.
It's literally at his code. Yeah, the poison liquid. It is funny that he knows so much about poisons. I don't remember where he mentioned it, but he's like, yeah, it's clearly proof that the poisoner was inexperienced because they gave him too much, so he vomits.
So that's later. That's when because he's going to end up speaking to the next, like, the acting head of security, because we're going to end up in this, like, middle where this guy is neither dead nor useful, because the doctors only view him. They're not actually going to go and treat him, and they don't know how to treat for poison anyway. So they're just going to let nature take its course.
Yeah, something a Solarian has never thought of doing before. What do you think of that whole secret society thing running over? And he keeps playing with this, and
well, I kind of
even Spacetown itself was a secret society in a sense, because they all knew they had a mission on Earth that nobody else knew they were doing.
So I agree with Bailey, where if a connection existed, the easiest assumption to make was that Gruer's story of conspiracy was true.
Yeah.
I think there is something going on.
Obviously, they try to whack him.
And what's kind of interesting is that when we meet the new acting person, the new acting head of security, he looks... So one of my theories is that not only do they want to continue on the track that they're on, there's a group that wants to have spacers all look a specific way. Like the spacer that takes over for the head of security looks more like Daniel than any of the other characters so far. And he's the first that's like, listen, I never wanted an Earthman here. That was Gruer and his like idealistic and crazy dreaming and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly urge you to go home. I don't think you're needed. And, so he's like trying to chase Bailey away, and Bailey's like, I think you're scared they're going to kill you. And I'm like, no, I think he's got some weird ass ulterior motive.
You are really dumb, Bailey.
But
for the plot to continue. No, I mean, yeah, obviously, if he's being
that doesn't mean I think he murdered him, but
if he's dismissive of any help when his boss was just poisoned, when no one gets poisoned, this is so strange of an event. There's a lot of debate back and forth. Is he going to live? All this, and I think they think he will, right?
That's like I said, it's still
just
unknown.
In the air, yeah.
One news concerning your master, the middle robot said, the doctor's attending a master, viewing or seeing, viewing master. What does the doctor say? Will your master live? It is not yet certain, master. Even when you meet this other guy, it's not certain if he's gonna, like...
Yeah.
Because, again, they're just gonna let it take its course.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, the robot almost has like a lisp, a speech impediment from seeing this. It says, the robot said, "Yeth, master." Like it picture it kind of short-circuiting in its vocoder.
A defect in oral articulation too.
Yeah.
Because it came in with the limp.
Yeah. And it's a whole thing. They just go through where do you get the water from? He got it from the reservoir. He likes it lukewarm, so he leaves it out for an hour. So they have to sit it out for
an hour before a meal.
So they got to know who's been around that water for, they got a whole hour window that it could have been poisoned.
Yeah, Then Bailey is like, all right, we got to make sure that wherever the water's from, the reservoir hasn't been poisoned. If we can rule that out safely. Which is
kind of funny. I'm sure they got their own. There's only 20,000. There's not even 20,000 houses. Because like you said, a lot of them live together. Like the husband and wife. So.
I just love Bailey's like, all right, we got to test that pitcher. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, you get the water from the pitcher. And I get that you can't test for poison, but like you can just pour it into a cup and give it to an animal and see if it dies. And they're like, no, the pitcher's gone.
Yeah, the robots are great.
The pitcher's been put away.
Robots are efficient.
We cleaned everything.
Mm-hmm. Which has its own little mini point that there's all these unintended effects of new technology, of implementing things and the interaction of human and robot, of sci-fi. You get over here, I don't know if you want to jump to that part where they're talking about what the poison could be, because there's numerous mineral poisons. We make use of insecticides in our society, and it is not impossible to obtain bacterial toxins.
Where is that?
That's on 86 on the right. Okay.
Yeah, so at this point we call the doctor up because that's who Bailey's going to start asking, like, because Bailey thought he'd be able to call the doctor and he'd be able to be like, any idea what he's been poisoned with? And the doctor's going to be like, no.
He's like, I never really have to work. Nobody ever dies.
Wait, is that where we talk to the doctor?
They really get sick. Yeah, it says, what was the poison, doctor? Asked Bailey. This is the guy that clicks his teeth.
Oh, I hate that.
I was like, I was literally thinking about you. I'm like, she must be driven nuts visualizing this and hearing this.
I need you to realize that I sat in the dark because the baby had fallen asleep and I clicked.
I know, on your own teeth.
I literally did it. I clicked my nail.
It describes he taps his nail on his teeth while he's talking. Or while he's
his front teeth.
Yeah. Such a weird detail. I'm like, did Asimov know somebody that did this?
He literally goes, I'm afraid I don't know. Click, click, click. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah, and that's why they say if we can make sure that the reservoir is clear, we know it had to happen within an hour after it was poured.
They also, so this is where they mentioned, Bailey goes, how are you treating him, the guy Brewer? Direct stimulation of the neuromuscular system to prevent paralysis, but except for that, I'm letting nature take its course. Yeah. That's why, for the next, I don't know how many chapters, we have absolutely no idea if this guy's going to die or not.
Yeah.
We have very little experience with this sort of thing. I don't recall another case in over 2 centuries of practice.
Yeah, and that's why they can't just test the pitcher. Like you said, it got all cleaned up. And he wants to look through more, technical things.
Yeah. So, Daniil said that rather intensifies the puzzle partner Elijah, since it seems to leave no one in the role of poisoner. Bailey, absorbed in thought, scarcely heard. He said, "What? Not at all. Not at all. It clarifies the matter." He did not explain, knowing quite well that Daniil would be incapable of understanding or believing what Bailey was certain was the truth.
Yeah, and then he's gonna talk to Gladia again.
Yeah, we're gonna call the wife again. Because I think he wants to feel her out. Because right now she's a suspect for this murder too. Now.
Yeah.
So he calls her and she's in the middle of dinner. And she's like,
Naked.
why don't you join me?
Yeah,
and
she's
she's like, obviously not in person,
Yeah.
but like, I will stay on the call and you go to your dining room and then the call can be moved there.
Again, this is written in 53. I mean, people do this all the time where you just eat and have almost dates over, over FaceTime.
So it was funny because this is another comedy moment where he's like, but if I leave, and she's like, your viewing technician can maintain a contact. Daniil nodded gravely at that because I think he knew. And with some uncertainty, Bailey turned and walked toward the door. Gladia, together with her table, its settings, and its ornaments, moved with him. Gladia smiled encouragingly. See, your viewing technician is keeping us in contact. Bailey and Daniil traveled up a moving ramp that Bailey did not recall having traversed before. And moving through walls, sometimes a bit below floor level, sometimes a bit above, there was always Gladia and her dinner table. Bailey stopped and muttered, "This takes getting used to." So she literally ends up having to pause. Like, Daniil has the transmission stop so that they can get to the dining room.
It's so weird that I remember this part specifically of all the weird things I remember and forget from these books years ago. Because I understand this, right? It's like being projected onto his reality, like a augmented reality almost. Because it's
the projection's
true to life
so good,
hologram.
it just looks like it.
Yeah, but so then it clips through like.
It's just imagine it just going through walls and stuff.
Yeah, because as you move around and it tries to.
I imagine
keep it with
like
you.
The Sims, like when you move furniture through the walls.
Yeah, but it's like you're looking at this person clipping through things.
So when they finally get to the room, like the dining room, as though there was a signal, the opposite wall seemed to move outward and the table seemed to lengthen, and Gladia was seated at the opposite end. Room joined to room and table to table so neatly that, but for the varying pattern in wall and floor covering and the differing designs in tableware, it would have been easy to believe they were all dining together in actual fact. So they start talking about what happened.
And she knows him because there's so few people in this world that she knows. Isn't it terrible? Poor Hannes.
Well, I have a feeling Hannes, the head of security, was friends with.
The husband.
Yeah.
She says it over here, no? I don't remember if she says that explicitly. I don't remember which one. But yeah, you got a whole thing, this whole passage.
Because I just found this so interesting where she was explaining that the doctor came over.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Because we're told the doctor viewed the body, but if he came over to the estate and she collapsed in the room where the body was, he has to have seen it. But it probably would end up, what had happened was he came and saw her and the body was taken away. So he ended up having to see it in viewing.
Yeah. How'd he get there quick? Are you suspicious of him?
No, he got there by jet.
The robots called him. Yeah, okay. That's confirmed.
The robots
here.
called him. He got there by jet. It took less than a half an hour, and he took care of me and made sure all was well.
Yeah.
I was so woozy when I came to that I was sure I was only viewing him, and it wasn't until he touched me that I knew we were seeing, and I screamed. Poor Dr. Thule. He was awfully embarrassed, but I knew he meant well. So he's been our doctor since she was a child, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, that's of course him saying what he did.
Then
the doctor might have access to some of these poisons.
I wonder.
Yeah.
But we do get a glimpse into. I know there were no germ diseases to speak of. What about metabolic disorders,
atherosclerosis?
Diabetes, things like that. It happens and it's pretty awful when it does. Doctors can make life more livable for such people in a physical way, but that's the least of it. Oh, of course, it means the gene analysis was imperfect. You don't suppose we allow defects like diabetes to develop on purpose. Anyone who develops such things has to undergo very detailed reanalysis. The mate assignment has to be retracted, which is terribly embarrassing for the mate, and it means no. Her voice sank to a whisper, children.
Yeah, she has to say
and
the C word.
This is where we get. I highlighted this too because it just emphasizes where she says, yes, but if I get into the habit, because she's of saying the word children, I'll say it in front of another Solarian someday and I'll just sink into the ground.
Be too embarrassed and social faux pas.
Anyway, if the two of them had children, See, I've said it again.
Yeah.
Already the children have to be found and examined. That was one of the Rickane's jobs, by the way. And well, it's just a mess.
So but he's a traditionalist, right? Is that how
Her husband was described as a traditionalist.
Yeah.
We don't know about
but
the guy
part of
that
his
was
job
poisoned.
is hunting down these kids that are defective?
No.
I mean, that are from defective parents?
No, so what ends up coming out is kind of what I suspected. He is a gene analyzer for children, or specifically fetuses. But because he analyzes the genes, probably if there has to be a reanalysis of a child, it's probably him doing it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But anyway, if the two of them have children...
But he's not hunting,
The children have to be found and examined. That was one of Rickane's jobs.
I mean, he's not hunting the kids. They're just bringing them to him.
I don't know what you think I meant by hunted. Fucking bandolier and a Bowie knife in his teeth. He's stun gunning them and
I don't know. Sorry.
Roping them in. Yeah, I just meant searching. He's the one that does it. He's the one that finds them. And
how did I know?
I'm just saying, as a traditionalist, that doesn't seem like a very traditional job. If he was upset with this function of his job, and he's dealing with kids, he's gonna start to, I would hope, realize this is pretty freaking cold.
So
shit we're doing.
He says, who could have done it? There couldn't there wasn't anyone around. How do you know? There couldn't have been. He has no wife, the Brewer, the head of security these days, since he's all through with his quota of you know what.
Yeah.
So there was no one to put the poison in anything. So how could he be poisoned? Her eyes clouded over. But he was poisoned. That's a fact and must be accepted. Her eyes clouded over. Do you suppose she said he did it himself? I doubt it. Why should he? And so publicly? Then it couldn't be done, Elijah. It just couldn't.
Yeah,
Bailey said, on the contrary, Gladia, it could be done very easily, and I'm sure I know exactly how.
Yeah, which is our great cliffhangers that Asimov is so great at for the end of these chapters. We have our second impossibility.
Are you suspicious of anyone specifically?
Like I said, I'm a little biased. I have the hilarious, I hope for the viewers, predicament that I think I remember
I
how
forgot
the
that
death
happens.
So
I can't even ask you these questions.
But I don't know, the poisoning thing, I completely forgot. So I'm confused on that. And I don't know how what happened. I don't want to say too much. What are you thinking?
I am conflicted. I feel like I don't have enough information right now to give you a serious answer. Because I feel like so much information.
Daniel.
And then they keep introducing new characters. And the only thing I can really kind of see interesting is that now we have 2 cases where robots are short-circuiting due to something.
Yeah.
That's happened. And
which would imply somebody that really knows them.
The only thing I can think is that other robot might actually be able to give an answer. It's just so damaged by what it saw.
Yeah.
That all it can do is repeat.
It's like the stereotypical traumatized
you're going
victim.
To kill me. You're going to kill me. You're going to kill me.
And like you said, we have no idea who's saying that. Murderer, victim,
or robot.
The robot itself. Yeah.
Because technically, if something were trying to kill the robot...
Yeah, it's supposed to preserve itself.
Yeah.
According to the laws.
But unless it harms a human.
But it shouldn't be... Yeah,
it shouldn't preserve itself over a human.
Yeah. So, yeah. And of course, you got the trimensional where people can appear to be somewhere, indistinguishably from reality.
Could someone have pretended to be viewing? But I feel like that's so hard because you have to pretend to be viewing.
And we don't know if the robots can know for sure if somebody is being projected in or physically there.
I feel like they're a robot. How would
I know, right?
No.
Their eyeball wavelengths or something.
I guess.
You'd think that they would know, but you couldn't make the argument the opposite. Like, shouldn't a person know more? Like pheromones and just weird, when somebody's looking at you, weird things. And even science, I haven't heard good explanation for how that happens. But
well, another interesting thing is that, so I know that they get the transducer lobes later, but
yeah.
Bailey has been wondering how all these robots are constantly summoned, since people just touch one contact, but robots all have specific jobs, and the one they need is the one that comes out. So he's like, is it because they're always listening? We know the robots have radio communication with each other.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of radio communication mentally between
the people?
Yeah, and the robots. Like, I don't know. Because
I know, I got the vibe that was
Foundation,
genetically engineered in Foundation, like later. Because
I know, I have a feeling that is later, but
Foundation is 20,000 years after this book. So it's interesting. A lot can happen with genetic engineering. Accelerated.
Do I really only have an hour and 26 left?
I know, I see that here. Hour 14 I'm seeing here for the reading. The audiobooks are much slower because it actually reads it slower than you would read it. Yeah, I don't really have a good clue on the murderer. Like, that's what's so cool. I forget enough that it's still fun for me. Like, yeah, how the hell could that happen? So, I can't say much more than that. It's cool, though. I just love the interplay of the positronic brain and someone playing with the laws to mess with them. That's such a recurring theme here.
You're still in chapter 8, right?
Yeah, we should call it here.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at chapter 7.
And then tomorrow is...
You might finish it.
Tomorrow's a Friday night, too.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you're going to finish it tomorrow.
Oh, I'm finishing it
We'll see when we record
it.
It'll probably just be 2 parts. The next part of our talk will probably be the whole rest of the book.
Probably. Because I think... Let me see if I can tell you what percent I'm at.
Yeah. Well, I could just go
It doesn't
here.
matter, but it just helps me get a good idea of whether I'll finish it tomorrow or not.
You are pretty far. I'm seeing at least 60% here. Yeah. You got less than 40 minutes of reading time.
I do?
Yeah, according to this. So we'll see.
Okay.
All right, guys. We'll see you.
Yeah, we'll see you in the next
We'll
one.
see you at the thrilling conclusion of The Naked Sun. Bye.